know we'll still have a few people trickling in to join us. This is a great topic, and I know that there's a lot of interest, but we'll go ahead and get started. And we're very fortunate and appreciative today to have Christine Pritzas from Lighthouse Arabia here with us. She is a counseling psychologist and the education director over there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Christine. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cindy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all attending this talk today on parenting the iGeneration. Before we get started here today, I just want to highlight that this is a sensitive subject. I know I'm often walking into the lion's den when I start speaking to parents about technology, because we all have differing views when it comes to what we accept in the home and at what age can we give our children a phone. And so there are often ongoing debates amongst parents about what is okay and what is not okay. And throughout this talk, I want you guys to meet yourselves with compassion, okay, because you're doing the best that you can with what you've got, and when you know better, you will do better. And I'm also going to share my stance over here. My stance is one where I'm going to share the facts with you guys, okay? And you're going to take those facts and you're going to marry them to your values, and then you're going to decide what feels right for you and your family, okay? All right. So just a bit about Lighthouse Arabia. We're a mental health and wellbeing center located in central Dubai, where we offer psychological services and psychiatric care to individuals across the lifespan. We have a team of over 30 clinicians. We have psychologists, psychiatrists, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, and the list goes on, and I can share more with you about our resources at the end of the session. I just want to see a show of hands. How many parents in this room have children under the age of 10? And how many parents have children over the age of 10? Okay, right. Good to know. So part of today's agenda will be to look at why we are speaking about the subject. Why now? And understanding the effects of entertainment technology. And we put that there for a reason, because we are not yet to speak about educational technology today, right? I'm speaking about the effects of entertainment tech on the child's developing brain, on their self-identity, on their relationships, on their health when it comes to mental health, physical health, and then also looking at what you can do when you leave this room today, okay? And I also need to make a disclaimer. I'm not anti-technology, okay, because I think I often come across that way while I'm speaking about the effects of tech. I'm not anti-tech. I love tech. It scares me a bit. I'm giving away my age here, but it does scare me a bit. But at the same time, technology has allowed me to do a lot in my profession and to access a lot of people in my profession. So I'm very grateful for it. But let's get into understanding why we're speaking about this. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. Actually, we don't allow the iPad in the home. We think it's too dangerous for them in effect. I can control my decision, which is that I don't use that beep. I can control my kids' decisions, which is that they're not allowed to use that beep. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. Right. These are 3 quotes from 3 men in the field. First quote over here is Sean Parker, founding president of Facebook. Second quote, when Steve Jobs was approached by the media, "Hey Steve, do your kids enjoy the iPad?" "I'm sure they do." That was his response. And then the last one is Kamath Palihapitiya, former VP of Facebook Growth. And quite frankly, a lot of Silicon Valley parents and the schools try to restrict technology in the classrooms. So the very people who have created the tech are the ones who are most afraid of the tech and know what it's doing to the child's development. Okay? Now, when we think about entertainment technology, I'm going to be looking at problematic interactive media usage. And PIMU, problematic interactive media usage, is made up of 4 segments. The first segment being video gaming, okay, which is what we see a lot of children struggle with and they are highly addicted to, and you've got to pull them away from the screens. Then we've got social media usage, which a lot of our children are on and rely on for their social functioning. Okay? Then we've got information seeking, okay, where we're going and we're endlessly scrolling on YouTube and on this tube and that tube. And then we've got, which one am I missing now? Let me just see. It's over here. Watching pornography. Yes, it happens in this part of the world as well. And it happens a lot. And I've had a lot of children who have come in regarding this. And so this is another big problem that we face because it destroys the child's relationship with sexuality, okay, and their beliefs and their understanding about what that is. So these are just some of the things that we need to be aware of. It's not only important that we understand the ins and outs of Snapchat and TikTok and notifications here and how to switch off notifications there. It's important that we understand the relationship between technology usage, popular culture, and my child's development. Okay? I have a Matryoshka doll in my office. It's the Russian doll. You guys know the little one and the little one, Okay, right? Sometimes I just play with him in my office. But the smallest doll is the child. Then there is a slightly bigger doll, which is the home environment. Then there is a slightly bigger doll, which is the school environment. Then a slightly bigger doll, or maybe a very big doll, which is Dubai. Then a bigger doll, which is the current state of affairs in the world. And so I seldom just look at the child. I look at the context that the child is finding themselves in. It's the soup that the child swims in. And the soup that our children are swimming in today is one of an omnipresent internet. Okay? They carry it in their pockets. It's one of societal pressures. I'm originally from South Africa, if you didn't quite pick that up yet. But any other South Africans here? Any other yas in the room? There, we got one. Okay. So when I was in private practice in South Africa for 8 years before moving over here, I found that the children there had their anxieties. The anxieties were maybe more around burglaries and violence and, you know, the load shedding and the this and the that. When I moved to Dubai in 2016, I saw something very interesting. I was fascinated, actually, at the level of anxiety around academic performance, the level of anxiety around which school I'm going to go to. I'm like, but you are in school. What do you mean which school? Because in South Africa, it's called a university. But anyway, I was like, okay, but you are in school. So there was a lot of pressure around this. There still is a lot of pressure around this. So the kids today are faced with that. The kids today are faced with a lot of peer pressure. And children today, whether they are under the age of 10 or over the age of 10, are at a vulnerable age because of peer pressure, okay? And this need to conform and this need to belong. We all want to belong, but the way we are wanting to belong is a bit skewed at the moment. And these individuals over here are your children's super peers, okay? Now, when I was growing up, not to give away age here, but I mean, when I would come home and say to my mom, Ma, I want to go play at Zoe's house. My mom would say, Christine, I don't know if I like that kid. Like, I've seen her at parties, she's too big for her boots. I don't want you going to play at our house. I'd be like, but Mom, why? There's nothing wrong with her. Like, no, if you want to play with Zoe, you can bring her over to our house. But you're not going over to the house. I've never met her parents. I actually don't know this kid. Okay? So, there was some level of control, you know, not to my liking, but there was some level of control about who I hung out with. Today, your child hangs out with everyone and anyone, okay? And your child follows everyone and anyone, and your child is having people like this be their super peer. So when we speak about peer pressure, don't only think about the children in your child's grade. We got to look at the people that our kids are following online. The likes of Ryan's Toy Reviews, who has over 43 million subscribers today, started his platform at the age of 3 years old in 2015, has a net worth of over $100 million, okay? And all the kid does is open up toys every day, okay? So this is what we are valuing. Then we've got Logan Paul, bottom right, who's this infamous prankster who ran into a lot of trouble and gained a lot of publicity a few years ago when he went into the Japanese suicide forest and started poking fun at a dead body. And so these are the individuals that our kids are following and liking, and I don't need to mention all the others over here. I'm sure you know some of them, and if you don't, this is what we are dealing with at the moment. And the messages that are being communicated on social media and the values that are being communicated are if you are thin, if you are pretty, if you are rich, then you are successful. Oh, and let's not forget if you're famous, because everybody wants to be a YouTuber, okay? So this is what we are dealing with at the moment, and I think just to understand some of the facts. So what we found post-pandemic is that cyberbullying has increased by 70%, 70%, okay? And children's screen usage has gone up. So it's doubled. And 8 hours a day is not necessarily what it is, because I have some kids that are on for 11 hours a day. So this is just more of the mean that we're seeing, okay? And children under the age of 10, 7.7 hours a day, okay? And I would like to encourage you to also go and look how many hours a day you've been online, okay? Because I was quite surprised when I went on and looked the other day at my screen time, especially in weeks where I'm working. I realize how much work I do on WhatsApp, okay? So we also see a 40% increase in toxicity on these online gaming platforms. BBC released a statement not too long ago about Roblox and how children can stumble upon virtual sex parties on these apps. Okay, so heavy usage happening over here, and it is impacting our child's development on all of these fronts. Okay, so we're going to look at the impact on self-identity, the brain, relationships, health. Okay, when we look at self-identity, this is a task of adolescence. Okay, in adolescence we ask the question, who am I? I think it's a task of life. I mean, I'm still asking myself, who am I? But, you know, it's something we will continuously confront. We will come and ask ourselves, who are we? And this is a very important question for kids to be asking, but it is even more important for children growing up in the UAE because they are third culture kids. Many of them are. There may be some that aren't and whose parents are originally from here, but a lot of our kids are third culture kids, meaning that the country that they're growing up in is not the country that they're originally from, and that they may have parents from different cultural backgrounds, and they come to this place, and now they have to form an identity. Now who am I? Okay? And so how is self-identity formed? It's formed through the strong feedback loops that we are getting about who we are. Okay? So when I was growing up and when you were growing up, our feedback loops consisted of our teacher. You know, our teacher would say to us, you know, that was a good job, or, you know, she would write it on a note for us that we did very well, or our aunt would tell us that wasn't good behavior, or our friend would tell us, you know, that boy likes you, or that was our feedback loop. Children's feedback loop today extends into the metaverse. And so we could build that identity based off of the feedback loops we were receiving, which were quite contained. Now these feedback loops have become a lot bigger. And when we look at self-identity, it's made up of two things here. It's the self-awareness and the self-esteem, okay? Right? And wanting that sense of uniqueness and wanting that sense of affiliation. And I give you this example of a 11-year-old girl who is playing guitar, and she takes a picture of her guitar and she posts it on Instagram, and she gets 10 likes. Then the next week she takes a picture, or she gets someone to take a picture of her playing the guitar, and she gets 50 likes. Then she decides to put on some makeup and videos herself playing guitar, and she gets 500 likes. Okay? What is being communicated to me, and what feedback loops am I getting? Okay, I must make sure I'm done up. I must make sure I'm showing myself. So it's become this culture of show thyself rather than know thyself. It's become this culture of I have a virtual identity and I have a real identity. And there is this reconciliation that is not happening over here. I was astounded about 3 or 4 years ago. I had a teenager come into my office, and she said to me, she's got a party this weekend and she doesn't know what she's going to wear, you know, but you know, she really hopes that her pictures come out well. And it kind of like took me a while to understand, but are you not more concerned about the actual party and how you're going to look for the people at the party? No, it's the pictures, because the pictures are going to go online, and I can't wear what I wore last week, and so there's this whole thing that is happening, and there's a lot of pressure on the children around this topic. And I actually worked with a 16-year-old girl 2 years ago, grounded, phone gets taken away from her, and she comes into a session. I say, how are you feeling? And she says, I actually feel quite relieved. And I said, why? She goes, because, you know, there's a lot of pressure and stuff, and I actually gave my friend my password to the Snapchat, so now she can send all my streaks for me, because every day you've got to send a streak. So I said, what's a streak? I'm like, I don't know what is a streak. I'm like, what are you talking about? Who's streaking? What? And I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And she had to explain to me that, you know, you send streaks, and if you don't send one a day, then the chain breaks, and we are on 364 streaks, and we almost hit a year. The pressure. Okay? So these are some of the things that we are contending with over here. And then with regards to the brain, what we are seeing is that when we are engaging in that partial sustained attention to the phone, we can experience digital fog, we can experience a techno-brain burnout. Okay? When this happens, our bodies are releasing more and more of the stress hormone, the cortisols, the adrenalines, and it is impacting. In the moment it gets you to function, but over time it's impacting and impairing your cognitive functioning. It is also beginning to mess with the neural circuitry that is related to thought and mood. Okay? So this is where the tech usage over time can start impacting our anxiety levels, our ability to experience depression. So this starts to happen. And multitasking is a lie. And if you want to read a good book, it's called now, Do One Thing. Do One Thing by Gary Keller, where he speaks about multitasking being a lie, and it actually costs us 40% of our productivity, right? So we think we're working faster, but we're working sloppier. Right. Now, the research is telling us that entertainment technology is impacting the child's brain. It's impacting their ability to be attentive. Okay? So I'll give you this as an example, because this is actually what is happening. Your child goes onto their iPad and they start playing Angry Birds, and you hit on the one bird and it explodes, and you hit on the other bird and it spins around, and the other bird changes color. I'm just giving you an example now. I haven't played Angry Birds in a while. But this is what's happening while the child is playing. So they are kept in the loop, they are on it, they are engaged. Then they go into the classroom the next day. And Mrs. Hanson, I'm just giving Mrs. Hanson because she was my science teacher, is standing by the whiteboard in her grey suit, and she's trying to tell you about the periodic table. And Mrs. Hanson isn't changing colours, and she isn't spinning around, and her eyes aren't popping out. And so what happens? No, this is boring. And you're going on longer than an Instagram story. I can't. So many children do not have ADHD is what I want to say to you. They do not. Please don't medicate them unless you get a formal assessment and it's happening over a period of time and it's done by a professional. Please consider that technology is impacting your child's ability to focus and concentrate. Okay? And I'm not saying that children do not have ADHD. I have been in the realm of testing kids and putting down the diagnosis on the report and getting them to see the psychiatrist and doing everything that we could possibly do to help the kid. So I've been there. I'm not saying I'm anti that either. There's place for that. But make sure we are treating the right thing over here. Because sometimes kids who are restless and fidgety actually have occupational therapy needs. And our occupational therapist just walked into the room. Yeah, Hiba is sitting over there. Hi, Hiba. And so often I will refer to Hiba before we do anything else, because the child may have sensory integration difficulties. And that's why they're restless and fidgety. The child may have low muscle tone and they can't sit still in their chair. They're moving around like this because they don't have the muscles to sit still. They don't have ADHD. They have low muscle tone. They need OT first. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider when we are thinking about attention in particular. Okay? And so what we see is that when we are reading books, it allows for that deep critical thought to happen. It allows for us to go into the material, to engage in that critical thinking. And so if I were to use an analogy of reading books versus reading a screen, reading books is like scuba diving. You can go deep. You can go forwards, you can go backwards, you can come up, you can come down, you're going to explore, you're going to find. Screens, and looking at screens, is like jet skiing. Just hitting the surface of something. Getting a lot of it, but just hitting the surface of something. And Harvard professors are taking to pen and paper when they are teaching their students, because they know there's sustained attention and retention through that. So this is something we need to be thinking about here. We need to be aware of the multitasking, the techno burnout. We need to encourage our kids to engage in the single tasking. And enough about that, because I want to get to the why. And I want to get to the how. The how. Right, so relationships are being affected as well. And Sherry Turkle, who is the author of the book Alone Together, speaks a lot about how technology has impacted day-to-day relationships. And she also speaks about how WhatsApp and Instagram have allowed us to keep people at a distance in amounts that we're able to control. Okay, so I can keep you at a distance, I can leave you on red, I can do a whole lot of stuff, and you won't know actually how I am doing. But this is making kids actually feel very isolated in their experience. And what we know is that relationships are the single greatest predictor of happiness, and there was the 75-year Harvard grant study that was conducted. I'm not going to get into it now, you can go and Google it in your own time, but what they found was that the greatest predictor of happiness was having deep, meaningful connections in life. And if I can just leave you on unread, and I can resolve my conflict with you by unfriending you or muting you or unfollowing you, then I actually don't know if that is the grounds to have that deep, meaningful relationship with you. That I cannot pick up the phone and call you to have that conversation. When I was a kid, if I wanted to speak to my friend Grace, I had to phone to their house. And I had to speak to Uncle Peter first, okay, who I was actually quite scared of, right? Her dad was a lawyer. Hello, Uncle Peter. How are you doing? Fine. I just said, fine, thanks, and you? Is Grace home? No, she's not, my darling. She's at piano. Okay, please can you ask her to call me back? So requesting for things, speaking to someone, engaging with someone, disengage. You don't just put the phone down on Uncle Peter. He's still talking. Can you send my regards to your dad? Yes, Uncle Peter. Well, okay, goodbye. Bye. Put the phone down, right? So there's that exchange that's happening. When we were younger and we used to go to a restaurant with our parents and my uncle and my aunt, I had to sit and watch my dad debating with my uncle about which island in Greece makes the best halloumi. That's what we had to sit and watch. We watched that conflict resolution happening, that conflict happening. We just had to endure it, right? There was nothing else to do except maybe color in. The other day I went to a restaurant and I'm sitting down and I love people watching as well. So I'm sitting there and there are 3 people sitting at the table next to me. The one is looking at the menu, the other one is on the iPad, and the other one is on the phone. Not to give away names here or ages or what's going on here, but the gran was reading the menu. The mom was on her phone and the child was on the iPad, and the poor gran was trying to get everybody's attention because she wanted to order food, right? So this is just what we are seeing at the moment when it comes to the relationship side of things, how these online relationships often lack the depth that is needed. And what we're seeing is that children are displaying more traits of narcissism. I don't want to get into the whole narcissism topic here, but children are coming forth as being more self-absorbed. It's more about myself, me, my world, this virtual identity that I'm creating. And so there's this rise in the narcissism and the decline in empathy. And the family relationships are changing as well in terms of how much time we spend together. When we are spending time together, are we on our phones as parents? What are our kids then picking up on in terms of what is okay, what is not okay? And children are far more tech savvy than we are, okay? Which also puts us at a disadvantage often. And then physical and mental health. Okay, so we see that there's the somatic stuckness that children are experiencing. They're not moving their bodies, okay? And emotion is energy in motion. If I'm not moving my body, what's happening to that stress? What's happening to the anxiety? Everything is getting stuck in the body. And so physical health is compromised, okay? Because children are eating what they want, parents are often at work, they just see that money went off their account for the Deliveroo app. There's high-risk behaviors that are taking place. As far as mental health is concerned, we are seeing that the rates of anxiety and depression have doubled in our youth since the onset of the pandemic. We are also seeing that children are experiencing higher levels of anxiety related to their technology usage. It's not to say that Instagram is causing your child to be depressed or anxious. But it is the social comparison theory that is creating a lot of that, because I go online and I don't feel as good as I should. Or actually I feel good and then I go online and I see, hold on a second. And it even happens to parents, by the way. And I work with a lot of parents, and I found them coming in and saying, I just don't feel competent as a mother. You know, I went on social media the other day and this one woman was posting a picture of this fish that she made, that she baked, that her husband went and caught. And then, you know, and she cooked it from scratch, and here I am, and I just ordered my kids McDonald's, and like we're sitting here and we're eating because we didn't have time to cook anything. And so this is what you guys are often dealing with as well, is that feeling of incompetence, right? So what we see is that girls are often more impacted, yeah? In 2018, I went to Los Angeles and attended a conference over there, and one of the speakers was addressing the topic of confidence levels and how they are impacted in our youth, and how kids, she was speaking about girls specifically, how girls' confidence levels drop from grade 7 down up to grade 9. There's a steep decline. And she used a very interesting analogy that I till today will not forget. She said, when your child turns 18 or 16, do you just take the keys of the car and say, here we go, my darling, have many happy miles, go and enjoy your ride? No, we don't. We make sure that our kid goes for driving lessons. We might be the first that actually takes them to the parking lot and teaches them a thing or two. We teach them the etiquette of the road. They go on long trips with us. They see how we overtake. They see how we thank the drivers afterwards with our hazard lights. They see all of that. Okay? So we don't just give them the keys to the car. But we are quick to give our kids a phone and go, happy 8th birthday. When we know that the phone can take the kid a whole lot further than the car can, to more dangerous places than the car will ever take them, just from the corner of their room. So this stayed with me, because when we do give our children a phone, are we teaching them etiquette? Are we teaching them how to stand up for themselves, how to assert themselves, how to set boundaries? Is that happening? No, because the thing in question seems benign. It's in our phone, it's in our pockets. It's not dangerous. It's benign. But is it really? Okay? So, and I forgot to mention the lack of sleep, which is probably one of the most important parts here of the talk, is that it is impacting kids' ability to go into that deep sleep, which then has a direct effect on mood, concentration, memory retention, etc. Social media addiction, so what we see is, I've tried leaving Facebook before, and then I got told my friend Grace is going to miss me, and then I get see pictures of Zoe and I when we were 12, and you know, like all of this shows up to try and keep you on the app for longer. Even the red notification, it's red for a reason, because red captures your attention. It's a triggering color. So something that I did a few years ago after watching Social Dilemma, it is called Social Dilemma, hey? The Netflix, yeah. Social Dilemma, was I removed notifications from my phone. And at first when I did it, there was a surge of anxiety that came up in me, because, you know, what if someone just messaged me? But then I realized I'm really curious. I'm such a curious person. So I'm going to check my phone every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. But I don't have Mark Zuckerberg knocking on my door every 2 seconds to say, hey, Christine, you got a message, you got a message. Because I'm on many different apps and WhatsApps and this. So I don't have notifications on my phone. I'm not saying you shouldn't have notifications on your phone. I'm just telling you that it works very well for me, because I'm very curious, so I'm very responsible, and I'm going to check my phone regardless, right? But I'm not checking it every 2 seconds. Okay? So then we see as well this endless scrolling. It actually has the slot machine effect on Instagram. When you refresh, playing the slots. Okay, what am I going to see next? So this is what's happening. The typing function. Why is the typing function on WhatsApp? I wish they would take it away, because I sit and I look and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and then my friend goes to the gym. And I'm like, okay, but like, you know, you could have just told me you're going to stop typing and then you're going to come back 2 hours later and finish telling me what you need to tell me, okay? So what can we do about it? I think that's why all of you are here. I think it would be good to develop some default systems in your home. Values. I never realized that my parents actually instilled a lot of different values in us. I knew of the common ones that I was instilled with in the home. I knew of them, but I didn't realize the others. And one of them, a few years ago, I left my apartment in a rush. In the morning, probably around 7:30 a.m., because I was going to go do a school talk. And I came home late that evening, like 8 p.m. As I walked into the home, the lights were on in the kitchen, in the living room, in the bathroom, and I got this sick feeling in my stomach. And all I could hear was my dad's big fat Greek voice, "Christine, switch off the lights." And I was like, oh my. How did I take that? It was something that was deeply ingrained in me, but the value of energy saving was a big thing in the home. And so what values are we consciously, unconsciously instilling in our kids? And I choose to hold on to the value of energy saving, right? But let's just think about, what are our children seeing us do? And our physical habits, and our relationship with free time, and our relationship with play, okay? Because adults can play too. And, you know, the emotional intelligence side of things, if we can build on that, okay? Because that's one thing that AI, I want to say can't take from us, but ChatGPT is showing me some things, okay? But empathy is the one thing that AI cannot replace. And I know there's a seal, I think that's quite empathic, and I don't know, there are lots of different avenues here, but it is the truth. Human connection is something we cannot replace, okay? I had created a values wheel. It's actually this one over here. And it's something that I want to share with you. It's a tool that you can use in your home. Because we get rules-driven parenting and we get values-driven parenting. Rules-driven parenting, your child says to you, please can I have another 10 minutes on the iPad? And you say no, and the child says why? And you say because I said so. Okay? Children don't like because I said so. They want to know why. Values-driven parenting is when I am disciplining and I am informing you based off of our core values in the home. So something you can do on your weekend is go to Creative Minds or to another stationery store and get an A3 canvas and some paint or coloring in pencils, whatever floats your boat, and you're going to think about your top 10 to 15 values in your home, whether it be fairness, flexibility, generosity, gratitude, patience, perseverance, balance, respect, and the list goes on. And you create your values wheel. You can have your kids create it with you because it's a joint effort. And when your child comes to you and says, can I please have another 10 minutes on the iPad? You say, no, my darling. And she says, why? And you say, because in our home we value health, or we value balance. And by you spending an hour and 10 minutes, that's not balance for me. So that's my reasoning. So when I am disciplining, I am anchoring it in a value. So the child then is learning about a value and not only the rule in the home. If your child comes home and says they don't want to do karate ever again and they had their first lesson, you might say to them, actually, in our home, actually you are going to go back to karate. And the child says, why? I don't want to. Because in our home we value perseverance. And we value giving something a shot first, and one lesson isn't enough for us, so you're going to go back and do another 2, and then you can decide if you don't want to do it anymore. I'm not saying that's how you parent, I'm saying that's how it can be done. So there's a reasoning for why I'm telling you something. It's not because I'm just telling you something. I'm anchoring it in a value. Okay? If you don't share your sweets with your brother, it goes against the value of generosity for us. Can you please share whatever it is? So this is just one way to look at how we can parent. And then in terms of self-identity, looking at limiting the child's exposure to the social media apps, looking at finding ways to ground them in reality, but then also walking the talk. Okay, so try not to text and drive, try not to, be on your phone when you're sitting and having dinner with the kids. Try to be in the moment as well with them so that they can see that this is how it's done. When you go to a restaurant with the kids and friends of yours, try not to be on your phone. So it really is important that we are walking the talk over here. And avoid oversharing on social media. And the reason I say this, and you can share whatever you like, by the way. You can do whatever you like. You can post pictures of your kids. You can post videos of your kids. But it is also then fueling that that idea that everything we do needs to be online and everyone needs to see us all the time. And it doesn't really matter what's happening in the present moment. It's more important what's happening in the virtual world. And also, that you ask your kid if they want to be online. Because I can guarantee you, when I was 9 years old, I had like this haircut that I swear, if my mom posted pictures of that and it's still online today, I don't think I would be okay with that. Okay? So you've got to ask your kids, do you want to be on? Is it okay if I post? Or you don't? Set time aside to shut down your devices, right? So to give your children your full attention. And if it is that your child does come to you while you're in the middle of something on your phone, just say, I'm in the middle of something, I'm busy working, or I'm on the call with a friend, or whatever the case is, I will get to you and we will have time to chat about this. So just setting the limit over there. And then stand in a position of curiosity versus standing in a position of judgment and knowing with your kid. So if it is that they are watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, try and enter their world. Try be curious about their world. What is it about the show that you really like? And what did you think about Kim, or how Kendall spoke to her mother? Like, what did you think about that? Like, get curious with them. Use it as a platform to engage with them, to get into their world. And something you could also ask your kid, if it is that they posted something online that was not okay, you could say to them, would this pass the Gulf News test? And they'll say, what do you mean? They'll say, well, if that photo went onto the front page of Gulf News, would we still be in this country? Okay? Because often they don't think of these things, okay? And then it impacts your livelihood because of something that they posted or that they did on the weekend. So you just got to put it in their faces sometimes. Right? And then insert your views in a non-judgmental, caring way, reminding them of their futures. So one of my roles at Lighthouse is I'm also heading up recruitment. And so something that I do is, if I'm looking at a potential candidate that we're going to bring on board, I Google their name. Then I see, they've got an open account. Very interesting things that you may come across of someone when you just Google their name. And so their future jobs are affected by the things that they are posting today. Whether it is that college admission officer or the person reviewing them for the job. Okay? And children need boundaries. The more boundaries the kid has in place, the more safe and secure the child feels. And I'm going to say aim for the authoritative parenting style, which is one where we allow for flexibility in the home, but there are still very clear boundaries around that. And I know the second point I might need to hide behind here, but I'm going to say, be friendly, but don't be their friend. What I mean by this, please hear me out. You can be your child's best friend, but when I am your best friend, you can also block me. You can also mute me. You can also leave me on unread. You can also slam the door in my face. Because now we're at the same level. We share everything. Yes, we do share everything, but I'm still your parent. Parenting is not a democracy. Okay? So I'm going to be approachable. I'm going to be available. I'm going to be non-judgmental. I am your friend in those ways. But I'm still your parent. You must know who you're talking to. I'm not your friend. Well, I am when you need me to be, but actually I'm not. I am your parent. And that's what I mean by this. Because we need that leverage. We need that leverage to be able to communicate these things. More boundaries they have, the more safe and secure they feel. The more safe and secure they feel, the more confident they will be to step out into the world. Okay, so how do we look after the brain? Cultivate single tasking. Cultivate single tasking. When you're sitting down to have that meal, you're sitting down to have that meal. When you are watching the TV show, that's all you're doing. You're watching the TV show. You're not watching the TV show. Put your phone away. Watch the TV show. Right? When you are going for a walk, sometimes to engage in wireless activities. I call it wireless walking. Okay? Go out for a walk and we don't have our phones with us. We don't have technology with us. We're just out in nature. So doing one thing, having sacred spaces in the home, having times where it's a tech-free time in the home. Maybe we do board games night, okay? Maybe we go old school. Maybe we play chess or do puzzles together. These are often things that we can also do in the home. But the child is not going to do it if you don't value it, okay? Because they're just not going to be influenced by certain things. But it's what you're doing. It's how you're engaging with mindfulness, how you're showing up in the home too. And then the relationships is about nurturing the intimacy with your child and making that emotional intelligence a priority in the home. And what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is self-awareness, it's self-regulation, it's social awareness. Okay, so making time for those conversations to understand how the child is doing. And speaking to them about the messages that they are getting, having that open communication around how things are going for them, if they do have a phone, how they're finding, those relationships online. Additional recommendations. So the American Academy of Pediatrics released this statement many years ago where they spoke about how much time a child should be spending online. Now, this is backed by science and research, but children younger than 18 months should avoid media usage except for the video chatting. Between 18 to 24 months, it's high quality programming only. For preschoolers, it's no more than 1 hour per day of high quality programming. For children 6 years and older and adolescents, the rule of thumb over here is that their media usage should not replace other important activities that are essential to their development. So what do I mean by this? If your child is getting 9 to 11 hours of sleep a night, if they are having time to exercise in the day, if they are having time to do their homework, if they are having time to sit down to family meals, and there is still time left over in the day, you can do with it what you like. You can then decide, my child is only allowed an hour, my child is only allowed 5 minutes, my child is only allowed 3 hours, I don't know. You're going to decide what that looks like for you. But it needs to keep in mind that this needs to happen first. Okay? And you want to co-view material with your kids. You want to see what they're seeing. You want to be in their world. You want to get them to teach you how to play Minecraft. You want to connect with them because you also don't want them to feel like what they like and what they're interested in you think is nonsense. Okay, so understand their world, step into their world. What is it about this Roblox? Okay, because maybe then while we're playing we'll see the strip club coming up and I can then say, whoa, hold on, get off, right? but if you're not in their world, you're not in their world. So be their media mentor as well. And you can decide what this looks like as well in your home, but simple things like no studying with a phone in the room. And I know a lot of them are going to say, but I use my phone for studying. So did we. Oh, no, we didn't. We didn't have phones. Okay? And if we needed to find out something, we would phone our friend. Okay? So if you need your phone, I'll give it to you, but go and study a bit and then come and get your phone. Decide when all devices get turned off at night. Decide where devices will get charged overnight. I think the best spot is outside the parents' room, better than the kitchen, because the kid can go down into the kitchen at 1 a.m. and start messaging and doing what they need to do. But I have many reasons why I say the phone should not be in the room with the child. Okay? And I have many stories about why it shouldn't be in the room. Choose and diversify your media. Okay. Common Sense Media is a great website that you can go onto to see if the app is age appropriate for the child and if the movies or the video games are appropriate for the child too. So that's something that I would suggest, because that's going to help inform you. And then decreasing their screen time and making space for reading books and doing team sports and playing board games and being out with friends and engaging in hobbies. These can all go a very long way. Okay, and here's some helpful websites for you guys that you can take a look at. I find many of them useful: Smart Social, Common Sense Media. And then the key for every parent is to facilitate a healthy, balanced relationship with tech, being aware of its pitfalls, and helping children integrate media into their lives in positive ways. Okay? I'm not saying we must all now go home and hug trees, but you can go hug trees if you want to as well. But I'm saying let's just be aware who's leading in the dance when it comes to this technology dance that we're doing. Are you leading the dance, or is technology leading the dance? Okay? And we have community at our heart, and we have several social media accounts ourselves where we're posting relevant, pertinent information around mental health and well-being. We have our main page at Lighthouse Arabia. We have our managing director and clinical psychologist, Dr. Salia Afridi, who has her own account, which is around your own journey through transformation and healing. And then 2 parenting accounts that I manage, at Lighthearted Parenting being one of them, where we speak about authentic parenting, and a lot of these topics that I addressed today will be on there. Something I didn't mention earlier is that I'm the creator of a board game named Smart Art, which aims at facilitating emotional intelligence in kids. And on that platform, we speak a lot about EQ and anything EQ related. And then we have pages for our youth at Lighthouse Insight and a TikTok page at Lighthouse Arabia. I also have my professional account that I've recently launched around the value of play and curiosity, and how to step outside of our comfort zones, and how to engage in play as adults, because we've lost touch with that side of ourselves. And if we want to connect with our kids, we've got to know how to be playful ourselves. And so that account is at Christine Kritzas. And then we have some additional resources. This is the board game that I spoke about earlier. We have recently translated it into Arabic. I don't know what it says on the box. I'm hoping it says what it says. But we've got professional translators who are helping us out there. We also have 4 new decks that are going to be launching in August. One is on digital citizenship. We're teaching kids and sharing messages around being a conscious digital citizen and the effects of technology, etc. We've got one on bullying, we've got one on divorce or separation, and we've got one on third culture kids, and then a puzzle. And so, this brings me to the end of the talk, but I know we have a few minutes left for any questions.
Have you had any experience with the app Bark? I've just heard some. I'm a teacher here at school, and my kids are thankfully in their 20s and getting married and having kids. There are apps now that parents can get on their phones and get any success. The one that I know is Bark.
Bark technology. Or
Bark is an app that parents can see where their kids are going, and it also highlights if there's words of depression or bullying.
No, I don't know about it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you, but
yeah.
I will. So BARK.
BARK. It's an app. It's not cheap. It's about $14 a month. But a colleague in a previous school talked about that, and might be something for parents to check out. And I just want to say, your talk, you've hit as a teacher, everything you said is right on the money about lack of sleep and about sexual content. And as a parent, it's crisis time. And this stuff is so very, very real, and we see it as teachers every day. And yeah, thank you. You're talking to someone.
Thank you. Thank you for that app. I'm going to ask we must look it up so that we can add it as a resource.
It's one of the parenting control app. There's also another one called the Studio, which is also very good, which kind of also gives you what YouTube isn't see when they're watching.
Thank you for
your
this.
daily feedback as to what's happening.
I'm so sorry. And your kids are going to say everyone's got this stuff, and it's not true. There are lots of kids that have the brick phones that are not on WhatsApp, that are not on TikTok. And when they say I'm the only one who's not, just say I love you to death, but there are others. There are other people out there that are not allowing their kids to do all this stuff.
Yeah, and if you think of the value of why you're saying no, then it also is because you'll have a strong sense of self.
Yep.
And that strong sense of self will be made up of, Mom didn't allow me onto that, but it's okay. We survived. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say generally, it's like also parents need to work together, get together, because it's a little bit like kids against parents. So how can you sort of set the boundaries in your home when others have problems in theirs? And everyone, I think, has problems because it's super tricky. So that was just a general comment. And then my question was, what about that Harvard study? Could you tell me again how I can find it? What was it called?
The Harvard Grant study. It was a 75-year study that was conducted in Boston, where they took individuals from low income status and individuals from higher income groups, and they tracked these men across their lifespan, and one of them was an ex-president of the United States. And they were checking with these men every 5 to 7 years, and they had seen that it didn't matter whether they climbed the corporate ladder or whether they had a beach house in Bali or whether they drove nice cars or actually whether they even got married or not, or whether they had kids. What was the most, the biggest predictor of happiness was the deep, meaningful relationships that they had. So those to show. But you can just Google 75-year Harvard Grant.
Hi, sorry, just have a couple of comments. The slide that you've shown regarding the disadvantages of technology. So I'm very aware of that, and I tell this to my kids all the time, but I think it would be great. My kids are in grade 3. If the school as well communicates this to them, that how being online, watching a lot of TV, how this is destructive for the brain and so forth. I'm very careful with technology, so I monitor very much as I can, but again, my kids are in grade 3. They don't have their laptops, or they don't have to use their laptops for studying. But I'm not sure in the future how will I be able to control that. And then you said that in the evening you decide after your kid have done everything from 5 minutes to 1 hour. Isn't 1 hour too much for a child?
I don't know.
What is the right amount per week for a child to be on?
So I think take the information here and then go make that decision, because I can't say to you 1 hour is too little or 1 hour is too much, because I know that your values may differ from mine. But I can say to you, please make sure that your child did get the other tasks done in the day first. And if there was time left over, you can then decide how you want your child to use that time.
Okay, and what is the recommended age for a child to have a phone?
35.
Thank you very much. It was very informative, and there's a lot of information to unpack. This is as important, if not more important, than reading and writing, to be very honest with you, from a mental health perspective, from a cognitive development perspective. And so in your work, and I know Lighthouse very, very well, Have you seen other schools implement this as part of the curriculum? Or is this something where you're going and giving a talk and hoping that some of this information transfers, and then if there's an issue or somebody comes to the lighthouse, they can have their counseling? But are you seeing any, whether at the KHDA level or at the individual school level, in any school system in the UAE that is actually implementing this from the elementary school up to the high school age as a proper piece of the education system?
Not to my knowledge that there are specific schools that are doing this. I do know that there are a lot of teachers who are very conscious about technology usage and who have certain structures in place. But Hiba, I don't know if you can shed some light on that, because you're often in schools.
Yeah, I don't know.
No. So the most that we can do from our end is the awareness raising talks, going into schools, delivering these seminars, and of course the parents that I work with, I never just work with a child, I would always work with a parent as well. And so we would be having these conversations in our sessions.
Do you see that happening at some point?
I would hope. But I mean, you know, I would hope that the guidance classes are speaking about the effects of this, and that, you know, from there kids can have a platform to speak about these things, because a lot of kids actually struggle with social media, but they may be a bit fearful to say anything because, you know, their friends are all online, and if I do say something, I'm not going to be tagged in that picture or not go to that event.
I know that the video will be available through your website, but will the slide show the PowerPoint presentation as well?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, that's what I was
Unfortunately
wondering.
not.
Can I
But if
just
you
take one snapshot?
Yeah, sure. If you do have any questions, as mentioned earlier, you can contact me at Christine Princess on social, or you can email me, or you can call me, depending on your generation. Yes.
You mentioned that like reading is like scuba diving and reading online is like jet skiing. I love that analogy. Where do podcasts and audiobooks fit in with this? Should we be telling our kids, no, we're going to turn it off, we're going to turn it off, so then go for a walk, we're not going to listen to a podcast, or what does that fit in?
It's such a good question. I think I'm all for habit stacking, because I only have 24 hours in a day, and I also need to research a lot of things. So there are some times in the morning when I do go for a walk and I'll listen to Andrew Huberman and understanding more about what's happening in that world, because I don't have time to do it otherwise. But then there are mornings like this morning where I just walked wireless. And so if you can strike a balance over there, where you can listen to your podcast, you can be online, or you can listen to your music, but then we also have some tech-free time and downtime, where if your child comes to you in the next month and they say, Mom, Dad, I'm bored, I know I've done my job. I know I've done my job. And it's the best thing that you can do, because boredom precedes creativity. It's been in my most boring times that I've created things, including this board game. But it's seriously, because when you sit still, your own wisdom emerges. Yes.
Thank you again. I'm one of several counselors in the room that work here at ASD, and we deal a lot with identity formation, TCKs, some of the things that you mentioned. And obviously, TCKs are in a challenging place with identity formation. Do you feel like they are more at risk than non-TCKs of falling into forming their identity online? And also, have there been any studies cross-comparing TCKs from other countries in comparison to Dubai in terms of their identity formation challenges?
This Matt, right?
Yes.
I remember. I've spoken to you many years ago.
Yes.
So I actually don't know of the research out there around TCKs in other parts of the world versus here. I think the reason we created a companion deck for third culture kids is because of what we were seeing around children feeling that they don't belong and not having that sense of belonging. So my guess would be that it is a breeding ground for more difficulties around identity, because often parents are also traveling, and so how much time is the child actually spending with is the parent spending with the child to instill those values, to speak about the culture, to infuse that into their world. So I think what we're seeing across the board is that a lot of parents' activities can often be outsourced to the coaches and the nannies and the rest. So the actual time that the child is spending with the parent is limited. And my guess would be that it can impact that ability to build that identity. But I also want to say that quality is better than quantity, and so it doesn't mean that you have to spend hours with your child and every time you speak with them there needs to be a lesson on how to be more Greek. No. It can be it can just be that they see you embracing your culture, they see you enjoying your culture, they see you getting up to do Greek dancing at a wedding because you enjoy it, and wow, my dad's proudly Greek. It's nice to see. It's nice to see that we belong to something like that. But it's also nice to be part of other cultures and embrace other cultures. So where do we draw the line? Right? Guys, I need to run. I have another meeting at the Lighthouse, so I'm going to go. But if you do have any other questions, as mentioned, you can contact me. Thank you.